Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are watching this on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Rumble. Maybe you're listening to this on the Success is a Choice Podcast Network. Welcome. Welcome to the Talent and Strategy Show, brought to you by our friends over at Affinity Recruiting and Consulting. Check out their services, how they can help you increase your bottom line, how they can help you advance your mission. Check them out. Visit www.affinitytoday.com. Today, we got some real experts on the show today. We have co-host Ruston Pierce. Most of you are familiar with him. He's been a headmaster, an administrator, a coach. He's done a lot of things, director of development. So Ruston, welcome back to the show.
Good morning.
And we have Jeff Bain. Jeff Bain is one of my former bosses. Now, that's not why we have him on the show. We have him on the show because he's actually an expert. So everybody makes mistakes, Sometimes you don't always make the right hire. So, he made one mistake, I guess. No, but Jeff Bain, we appreciate you being on the show. Jeff was a longtime athletic director, and not just an athletic director at Martin Methodist College, now known as UT Southern, but he is an NAIA Hall of Famer. He's a NACTA Hall of Famer. He's a 4-time National AD of the Year. So this guy knows his stuff when it comes to administrating and leading. And now he has formed his own business. He's now his own boss. So hopefully he has a good boss now. But Jeff Bain, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here. I look forward to it.
Well, awesome. Let's just jump in. Give our audience kind of a 30,000 foot view of where you come from to get to this point and kind of starting Leadership Logistics LLC, your consulting company.
Well, the 30,000 foot view is I'm older now. No, see, I've had a great career. I've been very fortunate to be around a lot of great people, and the easy way to look at it, I think, in sports sense, is if you being an excellent coach, Jamie, and knowing that the players help make your team who you are. I've got a good friend, Keepy Brown, who's a peer of mine at Memphis State back in the day, who coached in the NFL and at UT Knoxville and a couple other, I think Louisville. And he came down to visit us not too long ago out of Nashville, and he said, I'm one of 3 coaches in America who has a Super Bowl ring and also coached a 0-16 team. He said, we coached them just the same. And I can give my career as having a Super Bowl ring, I guess. I've had a lot of great people around me. It's been when I grew up in Jackson, Tennessee, it was literally a community that the entire village raised. I can remember being in middle school, going to a high school football game and sitting in the stands and walking to the concession stand holding hands with a girl. And when I got home, my mom said, well, who was the girlfriend you had tonight? And I go, well, she knew it before I even walked in the door. But I had a great community like that of coaches and church people and parents and friends. And as I began my coaching career, I learned early that it's important to build your network of good people. And I was very fortunate to always be surrounded by good people. So it was kind of like riding a wave, I guess, on a surfboard. Surrounded myself with good people at Martin Methodist College. My son, well, I won't say it every year. He goes, Jeff, Dad, you got the best coaching staff you've ever had. And he said that every year. And it was kind of true. It kind of grew itself. So the 30,000 foot view of my career was I was surrounded by good people a lot of times, whether I was in high school as assistant coach or high school as a football coach or became an athletic director at Martin Methodist College.
Well, I joked that, you made at least one mistake with hiring me, but we did some good things there with the women's basketball program, set some wins records, but then you one up that. And when I left, you hired someone better who one upped all those things, but you also hired a lot of other great coaches in other sports, a lot of success there. Was there something that you looked for when you were hiring coaches? Because you just mentioned how you wanted to surround yourself with good people. Was there a secret sauce, something that we can take away to the magic stick or the secret ingredient to putting people around you?
There actually was. I found it by accident, and it was hiring young diamonds in the rough, I call them. It was people that I thought had a good upside. There was a particular sport at one time I was not having any success. I finally, you remember Coach Rose Powell, I guess, a Olympian volleyball coach for us. And I went to Rose and said, Rose, what am I doing wrong in the sport? I keep hiring. We're not having any success. And she said, well, your last 3 hires, she says, have been older people, not necessarily old, but she said, look at the ones that you're having success with. They're all young people. They're sticking with you. And she was right. The older people would come in and just stay 2 or 3 years and leave. And then the younger people would come in and stay longer and invest more in it. So I think the key to our success with the coaches was being able to find some diamonds in the rough and it working out, and they stuck with it and invested a lot more time and energy into it, like yourself did, and it made the difference. So youth, I think, was the key to our success at Martin Methodist at the time.
Well, I left before I wanted to, not because you forced me out, but I had this crazy, I had this crazy.
Fire you? I don't remember doing that.
No. But I had this crazy idea. I wanted to be an athletic director, and I had this great opportunity to go be an athletic director. And I thought I had learned enough from you on how to be an athletic director. And then, lo and behold, I got there and realized, man, I don't really want to have to worry about making sure the concession stand has blue Gatorade and sitting in my office all day long and going to these, all these sports every night. So yeah, what you did was a little tougher. I wish I was back coaching again.
But somebody asked me one time on a particular day, they said, what does an athletic director do? I said, well, let me tell you what I did yesterday. I said, or in the last 24 hours. I said, I sat at the head table with the vice president of the United States at an event in Nashville and during a luncheon. And that night I was working a basketball game and I cleaned up vomit in the bathroom floor. I said, that's about as diverse as you can get as athletic director in a small college.
Jeff, I'm curious. You mentioned a second ago, really trying to identify younger people that have a high ceiling. What are some of the characteristics you're looking for there? What are the things that are kind of intangibles that all those people possess?
I guess it was the interview process that really was the slam dunk for me. I think the way it worked out, everybody interviews differently and has their own little thing. And one of our best coaches we ever had was a soccer coach who won 2 national championships in women's soccer, and then he wanted to coach the men and turned around and won a national championship in the men. And he said, Jeff, you had the strangest interview I've ever been around. And the interview was, I wanted them to ask me questions about the college because I already knew about them. And I said, Jerry, I already knew about you or you wouldn't be sitting in the room right now. So I made sure that they knew what the expectations were. I gave them the dirt, the problems that we had with that sport, because they were going to be the ones trying to fix it. And then I said one important thing to them and probably said it to Jamy. I said, Jamy, how many people are on your basketball team? And he said, 12 to 15. I said, well, you need to be the head coach of them. And I have a team and there's 12 or 15 of you. Then you have to be a player for me, just like I have to be a player for our president on his senior cabinet team. So they had to really understand the system, the way it worked. And then their response to that type of communication told me a lot about them that I may not have already known. But I think a lot of the people that came in appreciated me telling them the problems that we had to resolve in that sport and possible ways to do it. And then I turned them loose and said, it's your team, you coach. I don't want you coaching the way that you think Jeff Bain wants you to coach. I want to learn from you, and you bring good ideas to I think Jamy, I told you several times, Jamy had a unique style of way he ran his offense. Similar, I think University of Oregon was running at the time, if I remember correctly. And
is that called no offense?
And we won't comment this. This is all recorded, as you all know. But I was never going to tell him to do it differently, even though I hadn't some, but it worked for him. And so I could never have made that work. So I think having youth and being able to just kind of get the feel of what they felt the expectations were. We didn't have a lot of money. That wasn't going to be that was going to be an issue. They had to fundraise. They had to do extra people. At small college, it's you recruit more people than you really need as a JV team and things like that to help the enrollment. And as you help the enrollment, you're helping the bottom line of the budget, which helps put money in your budget. So just seeing how they react to a lot of questions and feel that you can, I guess over the years, you can get a good feel for what a person is like and how they will respond if you kind of ask them the right questions when they come in, but they need to make sure they understand what they're walking into.
Well, you took over when it was a junior college, and then you took it to 4-year status. But then even once it was 4-year status, you then kind of took it to another level. So even though maybe the school didn't have as much money as maybe somebody else, you were able to raise a lot of money, and facility wise, you were able to spearhead so many new facilities, and you really made the athletic department probably seem better and bigger than it actually was. If that's possible, you know, it wasn't a rich school,
Yeah.
and it wasn't a big school, but it appeared from the athletic department. You know, people talk about it being athletics being the front porch of an institution. The front porch looked pretty good. How did you build an athletic program?
You're the second person that's made that comment out loud about, in a nice way. You're not as good as you look like you are. I had a friend from Northwestern, University of Northwestern, or Northwestern University in Chicago, come down to visit on the NACMA board with me, and wanted to see what we're doing. And after we had a soccer game that day, and I think a basketball game, and she goes, "Jeff, this is nothing like I thought y'all might be. I thought y'all had more going than you did facility wise and this and that." I said, "Well, I think that's a compliment in it." She goes, "Oh yeah, it's a real compliment." What is those saying that your image is, I forget, how does it say? Your perception becomes your reality sometimes. And we had a perception maybe that we were a little bit, had more going on than we did. We were really bare bones during the junior college days, and that the only athletic facility that we owned was our gym. Everybody else played in city parks in our community. I mean, they had no dugouts that were ours. They had no dressing room that was ours. Even volleyball had to share the dressing room with our women's basketball team. We still have that issue with the college of volleyball and basketball together. So we built it with a strategic plan. I guess that's maybe we put a strategic plan in place to grow the athletic department with both educational programming, our life skills program that you're very aware of, that you're a part of, kind of helped set the guideline of what we could do to grow the student athletes. And when people saw that we were accountable for what we were doing, and we had more invested in than just what the school boards were about, a lot of people bought into it. And most importantly, our board of trustees. That was the reason I came to Martin Methodist College from the football era. I was very impressed with what our board of trustees had invested in athletics and how much success they wanted to see have. Back in the junior college days, up until the last 10 years, when junior colleges kind of changed and became so inexpensive, and as Martin Methodist was as a junior college, as our prices were soaring, we pretty much priced ourselves out of business with the junior college. And so the board of trustees wanted to get back in that as a 4-year program. That's how I came to Martin Methodist. It was going through the transition of a 2-year school to a 4-year school. And as I was a football coach, my portfolio that I enjoyed doing was building a program. I coached at Tullahoma High School for 2 years. And the 2 years prior to me, they started building the program back up where it had been down a few years. And we were able to build it and have success. Our head coach there, who was a coach at my high school back in Jackson, Tennessee, had hired me at Tullahoma out of college. And then we were successful at Tullahoma. He got the head job at Knoxville Farragut, which was a very established school back in the Bill Bates day, before we got there and after we got there and while we were there. And I decided, well, if I ever want to be a head coach, I want to come build a program. I helped build some facilities at Farragut and at Tullahoma. And the board of trustees heard that I was a finalist at a job at Maryville High School in West Tennessee, in East Tennessee, and Lenoir City. And it came out in the Knoxville paper, and I was kind of keeping it quiet. And then I got a call from one of the board of trustees, and said, we need to meet with you. And I got there, and there was about 4 or 5 board of trustees from the college, and I didn't know what this was about. And they said, we understand that you're looking to leave Giles County High School, where I was a football coach. And I go, how did you hear that? And they said, well, it was in the Knoxville Central paper that the local, a recent Farragut's assistant is now a finalist. And they said, we understand and we appreciate what you've done here in trying to build a program at Giles County High School. How would you like to come in as a special advisor to the president and do a blueprint for an athletic program as a 4-year school versus what it was as a 2-year school? I said, that'll be a pretty cool thing to do. That'd be interesting. It's different. I can always get back in the headbanging coaching business of football. And so for 2 years, we pretty much built a blueprint, bought the land of the East Campus that's out there now. That's really a nice little small school campus. We didn't have any budget control or budget accountability for scholarships. The coaches had to go to the dean of students to beg for scholarship for sports. The business office, the coaches had to go in there and beg for operating money. So we put together accountability of finance and scholarships and accountability program for operating budgets. And about the time all that came through, the athletic director that was there, Joe Harden, who is a great man, and then men's basketball coach, decided he just wanted to coach basketball. And so the president of the college said, Jeff, you want to take your blueprint and run with it. And so I guess that 2 years that I had there to kind of introduce myself and get to know the board of trustees and the money people, they bought into the vision that we were going to and knew that we had to make some changes if we were going to be a 4-year school. A 4-year school could not be a school that played in city parks for all their outdoor venues. We're playing in tennis, we're playing in soccer, we're playing in baseball, playing in softball. All those things were in city parks. And when you're trying to practice and play there at the same time, and conflicting with youth leagues and all the other things going on, it was very difficult. And it took a while. It took, it was probably a 15-year event of getting our East Campus up and going and becoming a priority. And it was very challenging. I told several people that I need to write a book on persistence and not going crazy over it, because it just took time to do it, to get it done. We were never getting set back. We were getting little bitty chunks going forward, a little bit of time. And, the only time I really got frustrated was the nursing program began 10 years, I guess, after we got ready to we'd been all these little baby steps to be successful and get our East Campus athletic and then a nursing program came in, which was very important to the college at the time. And they started all the big plans they wanted to do to build and add on and make that work. And I finally had to get up in a meeting and say, hey, I've been here 15 years now. We've been working 15 years on this process. We cannot lose traction what's going on. And so that was the success, I think, in building it, just being patient, having a strategic plan in place before we needed it, and just keeping people energized along the way and keeping it on the front burner.
Well, I remember there was a big faculty staff, like a pre-school year thing where everyone was gathered together in the cafeteria. And I remember you had a time to talk and you said, I don't know if that was the time you were thinking of, but I do know that you hit that pretty head on. And I was like, yeah, I'm glad that's our AD. Our AD just drew a line in the sand. He just put down the gauntlet a little bit. And
that's exactly where I didn't realize you were there then, but I hit the roof when that came in and everybody started getting excited. I said, a line in the sand is a pretty good analogy for that. Well, we're either going to cross and get going together, or they're going to be looking for different opportunities somewhere else with other people. But
building that East Campus was great. And, you mentioned a lot of city stuff, municipal, facilities that you were utilizing, but then you brought in baseball, softball, tennis, indoor turf facility, all this stuff. And it really elevated the college and the perception and also gave a sense of pride to those athletes too, more than what they had before.
Yeah, I agree. It did. It gave them a home. It was a difference maker when you can take a recruit in and show them our East Campus as to show them to city parks that are really recreational fields. A lot of our coaches would say when we're really good recruits would come in and say, "Well, I hadn't seen the field yet." This is back in the old days. I said, well, next time you come, we'll show the field. We're running short of time right now.
Well, I've got
you got Rowdy.
I've got Rowdy. For those of you listening to the audio version of this, I'm holding up a little doll. It's Rowdy the Red Hawk. And this is what, I don't know if you did this for every person that came to interview, but when I came to interview, you actually gave this to me. And I still have it. Jalen has used it for years, but I still have this. But you did a lot with branding. You were known as a creative guy. Someone that was creative with promotions, with marketing, with branding. You know, you mentioned NACMA earlier, the marketing wing of the ADs Association that you were president of for a long time. Where did some of your ideas come from, and what are some of the ideas in the marketing, branding, promotions area that you're probably most proud of?
I'll tell you, my wife's not here at home, so I can say this. I get in trouble every time I say it. But to me, branding was, and I had a saying I had to say, you had to make it look sexy. And I don't mean it in the sex terminology, but it had to be appealing to people. You know, for example, we had a young man that was visiting us to play baseball from over in West Tennessee, and he came to our campus 3 times, and every time he came, it rained hard. That was his image of, I don't need to come to Martin Methodist College. Every time I come here, storms blow in. That was his image. Well, branding is the other way. You've got to do positive things to make your facilities, to make your, and as you said earlier, people had a different image of who we were, because I think we did a good job of branding as coaches and parents, and imagery that we tried to reflect. And where did I get the ideas from? One of the things that I helped try to teach to our small college athletic directors, Notre Dame could have a great event on their campus, and it may cost them $100,000. And what we had to realize, we could do the same thing at Martin Methodist, and it may cost us $2,000 on a different thing. You do the same idea, the same project, and that the big schools do, and you just don't invest as much money in it. You get the same thing. So we try to do the same things that the big schools would do marketing wise, and just do it on a smaller scales. You know, we had mascots that came down from the professional teams that would be at halftime or at pregame at some of the outdoor events. We had jalapeno eating contests, all the things that you do crazy to have fun. And that's the things we wanted to do to make it entertainment. Because the marketing part today is, what can you do to get them out of the recliner? You know, the Lazy Boy Index recliner. Look how many TV channels and things they've got to do and want to do, and students today have so many things going on. You really got to do something appealing to get them into the arenas that are being played in. The Division I's have that same problem. I use it as, back in my younger day, if there was a big game to be played in the community, you went to the big game. And then about 10 or 15 years after that, you started having to have a promotion for that big game to make it work. And then 10 or 15 years after that, you started to have a gimmick for the promotion for the big game to go in. And the weather had to be perfect. So you really had to make your venues and things successful. And we did things from having free throw shooting contest on Valentine's Day or for senior citizens. And then we would have a Valentine's Day event. Everybody's been married more than 30 years, come to the game and we recognize. And so, you know, we just spread all those things out, trying to hit different people, different things. And the crazy thing about it, and this happened a lot during your time, we would get different people get to the game, and they come at, Jeff, this is a really good competition that you people are playing. I need to get out here more. But they never came again, just because they had their own habits and their own things that they did, and it was just too. And our parking, as you know, wasn't real friendly for the older people either. They'd have to walk quite a bit to get to the arena from where they parked. That was one thing we never really got accomplished that we wanted to. But I think that marketing is the most important thing you do, and then when you start winning, it grows on top of that. I remember Vanderbilt one time all of a sudden had a huge increase in their attendance when I first got started in basketball. And I asked him, I said, what has been the key? He said, Jeff, we've been doing the same thing for 5 years. We're winning now, and people are wanting to come and see and entertain. So, for a very small college, as you know, we had a lot of success in our venues with our athletes. Our coaches were able to really get some high quality athletes in here in a small college environment, and it's very entertaining. The other thing that we had issues here in our community was there's 2 high schools now in our community. At one time, there were 8 high schools, and they've consolidated them and got them down. And the only thing that they had in common really was basketball. Every school had a basketball team, so we could get some of the older people that would be still interested in it. But some of the other sports, it were harder to get there because they didn't play those at youth, especially the ladies. Ladies, you get the ladies that are 55 and 60 years old or older, they only had basketball back in those days, if then.
Well, you mentioned the great players and great success. We also, when I was there, we had a guy named James Justice, and we'll link that video into show notes. But he won the college slam dunk contest at the Final Four, and you put together a pretty good marketing campaign. You, with our SID department, put together a pretty good marketing campaign ahead of time because he was 5'9", and he ended up winning it was kind of not lucky that he even got in, but you had to fight to get him in, and then he actually won the contest.
Yeah, that was the perfect. It wouldn't be a storm. I mean, the perfect beach layout, I guess. Everything we did fell into place in that event, and we had Rudy Kalis from Channel 4 News come down and spend some time with him and do a little TV interview. And before the event. And after the first day, I think Rudy might have come down 3 times and spent some time with him. And after the first one, he came in and said, Jeff, he said, y'all gonna have to work with James in front of a camera. You're fixing to go down to an event. He may be on there for 20 seconds or he may be there for 22 minutes, but you can't fix it once he gets on that camera. So we had Guy Schaefer worked with him. We had another TV group come in. And we were going, what are we doing? I'm just taking Rudy's advice. So we worked with him because, TV is not a big exposure in a small town. Pulaski, we don't have a TV station. So it was new to James to be able to know how to smile, know how to look in the right place, know how to say the right things. And I'll be darned, we got ready to open. We were at the arena in Tulane for the slam dunk competition at the Final Four. And they got ready to do the opening showcase for ESPN. We looked at center court. They had James sitting there in the chair. He was the first interview that they had. And I text Rudy and said, thank you, Rudy, because James became the favorite the day before the event started with all of the people that were there, all the players that were there, because he was 5'9" and he could jump up and take a piece of chewing gum off the rim. I mean, he could launch it. And so we did all kind of stuff to have fun, to make it work. And the day before, Nate, our son, was down there with us, and he knew the facility guy at Tulane. And they said they're really disappointed in that there was not going to be, the tickets weren't selling like they thought they would. And I said, well, okay, it won't matter. It's going to be on TV. No big deal. And as we got sitting there and going, and the event got ready to start, it started filling up. Well, Tulane actually sells beer in their arena, and they got the word out. They wanted a full house, so they got all the fraternities involved and let them know they could get in free if they were in a fraternity. So that place started rocking. And I turned, I said, we're going to have fun one way or the other. So I got on the phone and called a limo company. I said, we're going to leave here in a limo and have fun. We're not going to come up here if he has a bad game or, miss a dunk. And we're not going to leave here, James, not being happy. We had a limo waiting outside when he came out. And after he won it, the director walked us out there. He said, how in the world did you get a limo at the last minute out here to come get the limos are backed up as Final Four for weeks? And I said, last minute, I said, we ordered this limo about a month ago. We knew we were going to win this thing. So it's one of those events. It's just everything went perfect. He performed to perfection. Martin met this. We talk about marketing and branding being a limited budget that you thought that we had. What did our jerseys say back in those days? MMC.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, we're not going to be on national TV, and they say MMC. So we got bright red uniforms, which we didn't have because they cost more. And we had Martin Methodist in big white letters and his number on it front, his name on the back. And none of our players had their names on the back. In fact, all the players, when we got back, said, where did they get those jerseys from? I said, well, we're going to be on TV. We're going to show it. Well, Martin Methodist College was the, I think, how did that work? It was the #1 trending tweet. In fact, that was the early tweet days. And Rudy Kalis texted me during the game. He said, we are blowing it up. James is blowing it up on the Twitter. I go, shoot, is that good or is that bad if he's blowing it up? So I turned to our Andy Sharp was with us. I said, what does it mean if we're blowing it up on Twitter? He goes, oh, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And Martin Methodist College, I think, was the number 2 or 3 Googled subject in the nation that night. They were watching because nobody ever heard of Martin Methodist College. So that was another way of being proactive with our brand and getting. If it just said MMC, no telling what had ever happened. And
if I remember right, he was the only small college. He was the small college representative. They were all Division I, and he had to win a vote, an online vote.
Right.
And so we had to get the vote out even to get him into the.
Yeah, there was 5 weeks of voting. And the huge benefit of all this, that next fall was our largest freshman class in the history of the school still. And it's because let's just think how it does with the Final Four and those institutions and the football playoffs and how it helps their admission staff. So it was a very fun event that all the pieces fell in the right place. And, Kimmons Wilson, the founder of Holiday Inn, had a great, his name of his autobiography, to have success. The title of his book was, to have success, it has to be half brains and half luck. And that's kind of what our sports information director at the time was smart enough to get him in it. And then everything just kind of fell into place after that by being lucky, I think.
Jeff, you've been around a lot of successful people. You've had a lot of success yourself. I'm just curious, when you think back through all the things that you've done, what was, in your opinion, what was the best piece of advice you ever received?
That's an easy one because I share that a lot with a lot of people. And it was always have a plan B. As you know, in a basketball game, if Jamie's coaching, if the play doesn't work, you got to have another play to go to. And I think that whenever we did events and strategies on our campus, whether it be in a hire or if you're hiring someone, you got to have a plan B lined up so you don't lose time. That's, I think, so much of the time, where there's those saying that life is it's not what happens to you, it's how you react to it. So it's kind of how when things don't go exactly right, you need to have a plan B so it can be something you've thought through. I first picked up on that was back when Coach Bryant used to coach at the University of Alabama. His defensive coordinator, Ken Donahue, came and spoke to her, and I asked him what he thought the football secret was to success. He said, Coach Bryant always makes sure that we always have to have a plan B for everything that we do. And that's kind of served me, I think, well, it's whether I'm doing it with my family or no matter for work, or I've always tried to have a plan B. If things don't go exactly as we anticipate to go, good or bad, we got to make it work somehow. We don't want to look like we don't have a plan B. We want to make sure that we're prepared for it.
Yeah, you used to. I remember that one, and the other main one that I remember that you would say a lot was you can delegate task, but not responsibility.
Yeah.
And that always stuck with me. Not that, we ever do these things 100%, but that sticks with me still today. And in fact, that made my most recent book. I put that in that quote in my most recent book.
He gave credit to John Wooden, so you're going to have to take that up with him later.
Did he say that?
No, not that I know of. You're the one that said it, but who knows who says anything nowadays? But you're the one that said it. You're the one I heard say that. But you can delegate tasks, but not responsibility.
I said that out of frustration of you coaches, you head coaches. You remember, it wasn't either right when you were there or right before you got there. Y'all never really had any assistant coaches at all. And we created our, JV coaches and got y'all a full-time coach. Well, I'll be darned. y'all were delegating everything in the world to them that they didn't know what to do, and they were too afraid to go back to you and say, how do you do this? So guess where they were coming? They were coming to me to find out how to do it. So that's kind of where I said, guys and girls, head coaches, you can delegate these tasks all you want to, but you're still responsible for them. Don't think that you're dumping off on your assistant, and if they fail, it's on them. So it kind of came as a frustration.
So I think what you just said is really valuable, and we have a lot of people in all kinds of industries that watch this. So I think it'd be awesome if you could unpack that a little bit more. So when you say, even if you delegate, you're still responsible, what does that practically look like? Like, how do you hold people accountable to that responsibility? And, from your perspective, what are the kinds of things that you should delegate, and what should you hold on to, knowing that you're responsible for all of it?
Well, the worst case scenario, I think, would be if the head coach had his assistant coach drive the vans, and he did. The head coach didn't want to do it, so he's going to delegate. You drive, I'm going to ride over here. And they have some type of wreck or accident or a fender bender. Has the head coach done everything humanly possible to make sure that whoever he put in charge of that van knew what to expect and how to respect, or was it their first time they ever drove a 15-passenger van? But anything that was done in that environment that the coach asked somebody else to do, and most of the time it's because they didn't want to do it, to be honest with you, is if it wasn't done right, I go back to the coach and say, you're not blaming this JV person here that's first year coaching and you've got 15 years experience for something going wrong. It wasn't because you need to make sure you're showing them how to do it. And so I guess holding them accountable, or not necessarily holding them accountable, but keeping it in front of them, I think was important, that you don't just throw something off and forget about it and go on. And I'm not saying it's bad to delegate. Just make sure you delegate it to a responsible person that is going to fulfill it in a responsible way. And I take that. I don't. Jamy may correct me on this, but there wasn't hardly anything that I ever asked a head coach to do that I wouldn't help do. In fact, one of the things I think I was born putting up chairs and putting up tables. I just automatically do it when at the end of an event. And sometimes you have coaches that will just scatter and be gone, or leave one of their JV people to do it. So I think being involved in all those little things and being there is important. And I got that mentality unintentionally. When I guess the first year I became an athletic director, a friend of mine said, Jeff, what does an athletic director do? I go, well, nobody's ever asked me that before. And we thought, and he goes, I know what you do. You've gone from coaching players to coaching coaches. I go, that's a pretty good little summary there. And so I've always kind of thought it was my responsibility to help coach and show the coaches things to do and the right way to do it, without interfering with their intent of coaching their players. Because so many, a head coach is not going to be any good till they screw up. Is a bad word, and that's one of those professions you got to screw up to be any good at it. So you just kind of keep them out of the ditch a little bit. But I think it's very, very important to understand accountability in anything you do. If you're doing one of the things we tell our young people when they're helping us do things, doing the grunt work, if you can't perfect the grunt work, you're never going to be able to supervise it down the road. And so I think you can never take yourself away. I can't do that. I'm too good for that. So you got to be visible in those type of things, which hold yourself accountable. I don't know if that really answered your question or not, but it's what popped in my mind when you want to know in delegation. I don't think you've got to be smart enough to know that people can do something to delegate. You can't do a dumb delegation, and that's easy to do. Go take care of that, Billy. Billy may not know how to take care of that.
Well, I wish that, that seems like an obvious thing or a logical thing to me now. But at the time, that was the first time when I heard you say that was the first time I ever really thought of that consciously or intentionally. But it makes sense, because if you delegate and that person doesn't do the job right, oftentimes as leaders, we're like, well, it's on him. I told Jeff to go do it and Jeff didn't do it. Well,
Didn't do it right.
Yeah. Well, either I shouldn't have hired Jeff, I shouldn't have given him that task, or I should have trained him better or helped him with that. Like at the end of the day, I still should have done something to facilitate that working in some way. You know, you can't just throw someone in the deep end without any training or making sure that they're not the right person for the job. So I never really thought of any of that until you said that.
Well, as I said earlier, and I'm not saying you did it, but if you asked one of your assistant coaches to go do something and they had no idea how to do it, no matter what it was, they were afraid or intimidated to come back to you and say, can you show me how to do that? So they came to me. Can you show us how to do that? Well, that was bad delegation for those coaches that would ask somebody to do something when the young employee, you know, most of these traits that these people work are acquired traits. Somebody has to teach them these traits. And we did our life skills program. You know, when I first started coaching, I always was a big believer in character and doing the right thing and being accountable. Because as I said earlier in the broadcast, people taught me how to be accountable. And when I coached, and all the people I coached with, we taught character. And when I got to the college level, I said, you know, I can relax. I don't have to worry about it anymore because these people are going to have this training. It was 6 weeks. And I said, these people are mean as hell in here. I mean, what's going on? Then I realized as I sat down and talked to a few youngsters that were not doing the right thing in college, I realized they didn't have anybody that taught them how to do the basic stuff. And I think that's the same. That's character wise. Somebody has, but also on skill wise, you've got to teach people how to do certain things. You can't just assume that they know how to do it correctly.
We deal with a lot of different industries, and what you just said crosses over every industry on the face of the earth. I think we can all think of organizations we know where you've got an executive who delegates something to somebody else. That person trickles it down to somebody else. Next thing you know, it's gone 3 levels down in leadership, and nobody's doing it because the person it finally landed on has no idea how to do it.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. It's you know, I was dealing with dealing is not a very nice word. I was having a conversation with a consultant that was working on a project here in the community. I was trying to pick his brain, and he asked me what I thought was the biggest shortcoming in people building character. And I said, trust. I don't think people trust people like they should. And there's a process to that. He goes, you know what he was a consultant for the utility districts, big utility districts in the Southeast. In fact, I think he lives in Chattanooga now. And he says, you know what the biggest issue that we have in utility district? And I go, no, sir. He goes, trust. The management people don't trust the people below them. The people below them don't trust the ones up. And that's a big issue that where delegation can help resolve some of the trust if you work with them or you just hand it off. And I think that happens a lot in our world today. One of my good friends, John Robinson for the Tennessee Titans, got fired yesterday as a GM. A great guy. And I'm just thinking somewhere, some way he delegated something, and I bet it just didn't get done right. And he's responsible. So that's what the young people have to learn. They have to learn accountability and trust. If not, it gets you somewhere down the road.
Well, speaking of consultants, you now are a consultant. You formed your own business, and you're not one of these consultants that's just doing it based on theory. I mean, you've had a Hall of Fame career. You've done so many things, as we've talked about. What made you want to kind of go this route, and you put a team around you? So you're still almost like an AD again. You're building a team. You're putting people in the right places. Talk a little bit about your thought process of starting Leadership Logistics LLC.
Great question, and it may be the first answer. Maybe the answer to your first question you gave me about the 30,000 foot elevation. When I was 21 years old and just started coaching, Ronnie Carter was the executive director at TSSAA, which is the high school association. And Ronnie wasn't a whole lot. He was 10 years older, I guess, than me. Not he was young, and we had some connections of people that we knew, and we finally met each other. And he said to me, we were sitting in parking lot, getting ready to go to practice at football. He said, Jeff, you're starting your career at 21 years old. What's your career look like? What's your aspirations? I said, Ronnie, I want your job someday. I want to have a job in athletic administration. What do I need to do to position myself for that? And he says, well, I don't know how to tell you to do it, but I can give you the best advice that somebody's ever given to me. He says, you have to be planning now what you want to be doing 5 years down the road. If you don't have a plan and start working on that, you're going to be doing the same thing 5 years down the road that you're doing now. Not that that's bad. He said, but you got to start gearing yourself towards your next opportunity. And I have done that my entire life. When I first started coaching, I was working to be putting myself in position to be a head coach. And when I got to be a head coach, I was fundraising and doing things, seeing the administrative things that took place. And then at Martin Methodist, I tried to build 5 years down the road of what facilities would look like and what opportunities and what we needed to do when kids graduated. And then about 5 years ago, I started planning for retirement. What am I going to do when retirement comes? And the number one thing I kept going back and somebody helped put these words in my mouth, said, Jeff, you like to help people those people are helping people. I go, that's a pretty good thing to say. It's kind of like you're coaching coaches instead of players. So I've wanted to do something to help other people who actually help people is my mindset. And I don't know if it may be a consultant strategy. I don't really call it a consultant because I'm just trying to help and give them information for them to be better. I'm helping them go through the steps and phases of things that they may be overlooking. For example, I'm not really advising them. I'm just looking at the big picture. I'm working with a senior citizen group here. I got a little contract with them. And one of the things that they were complaining about not having enough nurses. And so now we're going to work with them and try to grow our own nursing. And, we've got 5 higher education institutions in this area, all have nursing degrees. We don't need to be complaining about not having nursing for not feeding the pipeline. Well, as we were talking, they were not even going to the career days at these colleges. I said, how can you be complaining? And is it right? I mean, it's something right in front of their face. So our group with leadership logistics, going to lead them to the right opportunities that they look for. I guess our elevator speech is we're trying to help enhance individuals or corporate brands while engaging in some strategic growth ideas. So that's kind of our work cycle that we're trying to do. We put together a little diverse group and with social media connections, with HR connections, with design, technical design, and different things that kind of whatever piecemeal they might have, and it's just to have fun with it. Somebody asked me, what'd you do last week? I said, I worked about 2 hours every day last week. So it's a perfect world.
I do a lot of similar things. I work with a lot of nonprofits and mostly in capital campaign management and HR. And what you just said is so incredibly true. Like you'll walk in and start working with these people, and it's incredibly fulfilling because you feel like you truly brought value to what they were doing. But it's amazing how many times just having a third set of eyes looking at something and going, have you thought about this? Or are you all seeing this for what it truly is? And so many times they're just so mired down in what they do. They just don't even see what's happening right in front of them. And they can't figure out how to change the course of what they're doing because they're so stuck in their ways. So
and they don't realize how much time it's going to take to fix it. And they say, I don't have time to fix it, but they don't realize they can't move forward if they don't fix it.
Right.
So it's very rewarding. And I've really enjoyed in a meeting with a different group of people. When I coached, I had high school kids, I was in college, I had college kids, and now I'm more in the corporate world, dealing with small companies and small businesses.
Yeah.
It's all leadership. I mean, like your open video is all about teamwork and leadership.
So you mentioned, start today, essentially where you want to go, know where you want to go in the future. So do you have a 5-year plan for leadership logistics? Where are you seeing yourself 5 years from now? Do you have some big plans?
Doing nothing 5 years from now.
Working 1 hour a day?
None.
You're not running for president in 2024?
No. I'll be turning 67 in February. And if I make it to 70, if you see me doing anything related to work, you need to fuss at me.
Or you'll have built it up so well you can delegate. You can delegate to everybody.
But I still be responsible, so I can't do that. Remember?
That's true. Yeah, that backfired.
Forgot it.
Backfired. You're so wise.
You're not going to believe it. So last year, I said, well, I've got time to do some things while I'm doing these other things. And so I went back, got another master's degree last year in athletic administration of all things, because I thought, I might want to teach in college down the road.
You didn't know a college that could just go ahead and give that honorary diploma?
No, I didn't know. They don't have that degree. UT Southern doesn't have that degree. So I had to actually earn one, but I might want to teach in college down the road to answer what am I going to do 5 years. So I got the certification. I can now teach full load in sports management if that's something I want to do 5 years down the road. That's my last 5-year plan.
Well, we appreciate your insights and thoughts and your time. Been very helpful. Love those thoughts. And I appreciate you not sharing any bad stories about me publicly. So I do appreciate that. And
your brother Pierce, I'll give him some dirt on you. So
you're saving that for the book that you're writing, the tell-all. Exactly. But for everybody watching this, we appreciate you tuning in. For everybody listening to this, we appreciate it as well. Go ahead and hit that little like button or that little subscribe button if you would be so kind to do that. That would be awesome. Instead of sending us money, just hit that little like button. It's cheaper and it's just nice to do. But next week, we will be right back here Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Tune in live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. Otherwise, until next time, remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today?